Let me know when you're ready and we'll start the clock.
Yes. 2 years ago, I was proud to stand with the Just Recovery Coalition members to announce the release of our first policy paper. We came together to acknowledge at what we now know was only the beginning of the pandemic's impacts. The challenges of our time could not be solved by independent action, that our work, which often happens in silos, was indeed deeply interconnected. That environmental concerns intersect with housing concerns, that employment outcomes are also tied to disability justice, that our work must take action on tackling systemic racism and dismantling the patriarchy. We produced a document and a collaboration that made a clear case that our collective success rests in intersectional and interconnected solutions. The focus of that paper was not designed to be an exclusive list of all of the challenges facing the City of Hamilton. It was intended to be a conversation and policy primer to help explore a more equitable recovery options and push back against the austerity narrative. And although the City of Hamilton has made great progress on some of the 153 recommendations we made at the time, the previous paper shows that there's certainly more to do. Budgets are the measure of an organization's priorities. They transform intentions into actions. My question for you, for this council, is how does this budget telegraph to the city and those who elected you what your priorities are? More importantly, are the choices you made for the 2023 budget good for both the health and welfare of our residents and the long-term viability of our collective fortunes? I came here today to present to you the 2023 Just Recovery Policy Paper. It hopes to present bold ideas in a time of change. I would encourage you to read it, absorb it, and let it shape the difficult decisions you face as you tackle what this city spends and how. The budget before you is little more than a maintenance budget, set with priorities long before you took office. Is this budget you envisioned when you ran for office? Is it addressing the massive challenges our city face? Is it just? Ask because there's another cost for you as our leaders to consider, the cost of inaction, the cost of the status quo, the cost of a maintenance budget. Consider, for example, the housing crisis. The cost of a shelter bed, $2,100 a month. The cost of a correctional bed, $4,300 a month. A hospital bed, $35,000 a month. To contrast, the cost of social housing unit is only around $600 or $700 a month. I respectfully hope that you as our leaders invest in a just recovery for Hamilton, invest in bold ideas in this time of change. The compounding crises of our time are not insurmountable. We can overcome them through collective action, compassion, and caring. In the first Just Recovery paper, we outlined a vision for how we might respond to these crises and do more to build a just and equitable society. The City of Hamilton has shown great willingness to adapt to our trying times with new ideas and new models. Though a corporation as large as Hamilton cannot change overnight, reasonable steps have been undertaken since the last policy paper. The City of Hamilton must continue to push forward with making investments into the problems worsened by COVID-19 and support our most marginalized communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl, for your presentation. Just to note that the document that you provided us, it will be added to the minutes and will be on the city website. Any questions of our delegate? Councillor Maureen Wilson, please.
Thank you to the delegate. Why should I care about a just society?
Karl?
I did not expect that question from you.
She does that often, so please do your best.
I'm going to stir it up.
Honestly, what we tend to do in both our policies and our spending is reactive, and it ends up costing us as a society so much more. And by investing in people, places, and things that are transformative, we can actually, as I mentioned right in my delegation, that it costs us way more to take care of people, whether it's policing, whether it's enforcement in encampments, whether it's spending money on bylaw and overtime to police people out of our house, than it is to actually provide them with housing in the forefront. So I think you should care, because ultimately, as one of our leaders, I know you to be a compassionate and incredible person, and I appreciate the question, but I think ultimately you should spend because it's cheaper in the long run to take care of our most valuable and most vulnerable residents ahead of time, as opposed to reactively policing them.
Thank you. Supplemental, Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. Do you think there would be value through the chair in us to have an account of the costs per year in some of the existing situations? If I could just point to one, those who are deprived of housing. If we had an actual cost that it's generating in our hospital sector, in our municipal sector, things of that nature.
Thank you, Karl.
Through the chair.
You, as one of the leaders of this city, I hope that you would look at those costs and would analyze them going forward into the 2024 budget and moving forward with our budget considerations, and to see if the dollars that are being spent, for example, on policing, are not better spent on housing.
Thank you. Supplemental, Councillor.
I appreciate Mr. Andrus, his delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kretsch, please.
Hi, Karl, and thank you very much for your delegation. A word that we use interchangeably in city government is subsidy or subsidization. We often use it in a stigmatizing way. I'm getting to my question quickly. Could you just unpack for us maybe how we can rethink that idea of subsidy in the context of a just recovery to get us to some of the places you're talking about?
Thank you. Karl.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're proposing here and what the recommendations that are put before you, some of them require actually very little budget outlay, if none at all, like reforming the Board of Health. And I hope that you'll analyze the document, look at that. And some of them have costs attached, like transitional housing and an increase in the money that you spend from our budget levy on housing. But all of them, I think, ultimately are more efficient. And I think that the problem is the city budgets tend to be reactive. The budget that you have before you for 2023, for example, was shaped by councillors, some of whom weren't even sitting in this chamber at the time that some of those capital outlays were expended. And I think that they were, and I would argue that they were actually set in a priority that was reactive to the challenges then, and that they are a maintenance and a budgetary issue that could be much better spent, I think.
Councillor, supplemental.
Thanks, Delegate Andrus. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions of our delegate? Seeing none, Karl, it's good to see you again. Thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker is item 6.20, Dania Igdora, respecting the proposed